IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Welcome to Think Fast, where we talk about bhais and behens. That seems to be the story of business these days. How are you doing, behen? What is going on in the business space, Suchita?
Oh my God, dude! To be fair, I've been using the word behen for a while. It's such a fun word to use,
but obviously you inspired them.
Oh, of course. Inspiration for Sohail Sameer since 1990. Dude, that unnecessary fight. What the hell was it?
Karthik Srinivasan, right, who came on the pod a while back, he put it out. He said this is like a case study in corporate communications.
Bad corporate communications.
Or a lack of it, right? Like, great post, guys, check that out on LinkedIn. He literally went deep and saying every single thing that was wrong about that. And also the additional articles is basically, then now it's spun off, right? You're claiming your founder who's left has taken money off. On the other end, you are calling his sister Behen, and very derogatory statement in the way he wrote it. I think every single thing about this pulls the company down more than it was already down in perception.
Yeah.
Just so petty and so I don't even know.
It's,
so random.
I think one is that, and second is no one cares about this anymore, right? No one gives a shit about your internal politics or whatever crap is going on. It was funny for the first 5 minutes. It was gossip for the next 10 minutes. But now it's just guys, come on, get your shit together. How are so many of you royally screwing this up over and over and over again?
The worst part, last thing about this is that it's on a post which someone put up saying they aren't getting their salaries and they're struggling. Yeah. You're having petty internal politics about that. That person's not getting his salary. He has to take care of his family. So I think that was for me the worst part. Is that zero empathy in your head?
Yeah, and not just, obviously they are causing havoc for themselves, but I think this week's been a bit of a tough week overall, right? Trell was back in the news again, given the amount of multiple fallouts that have been having, courtesy the governance report that was sort of released / leaked or whatever the scenario may be by E&Y. So, some trouble continues to brew over there. And then of course, you had Gaurav Munjal, who I know we're going to talk about a little later. He gave a 2-part interview to The Morning Context. Obviously, we guys were chatting about this earlier, but the next story that really broke was, Unacademy is laying off about 1,000 odd people across their, efforts. So, tough week, tough year, definitely tough. Next 6 months are going to be tough for all, man.
Not just for people who want to raise, but people who are already in business. Everyone's talking profits, everyone's talking cost cutting. So, it's definitely in that space. That curve is kind of going towards it. Even people are selling shares. I was looking at one of these news saying Z's biggest shareholder is selling 7.8% equity, right?
Yeah. Sezzle India shut down. I don't know if you saw this, but it's actually a big deal because there is significantly large-ish BNPL, buy now, pay later player internationally. And even they seem to have shut down their India operations. And the signal that this sends to other BNPL, players in India, whether it's, a Lazy Pay or Zest Money and the likes, is a whole other thing. But enough about depressing news. Let's, wow our users with some happy, positive news. And the only happy, positive news that we have for you, dear listeners, is that Subdisarchi and Starbucks are launching a collaboration that no one asked for and no one needs, but they're launching it in any case. Did you see the cups? What did you think?
Yeah, the thing is this, right? You do collabs as a designer once, twice. At some point, the excitement dies down if you do too many of them too consistently. Yeah. For me, it was excitement the first time he did something. Now am I really oh wow, what's he going to do? I'm okay, whatever, he's doing this again.
Yeah, it's kind of like him in Bollywood weddings. You know what I mean? It's every single Bollywood auntie will walk out wearing a Subdisarchi lehenga with her mang parted in 2 ways, and those gaudy, loud, kundan, whatever the hell it's called, thingamajig. You're right, he's become very predictable.
But on the other side, you look at someone like a Masaba, because her innate style, or rather the way her fashion is, you still look forward to saying, okay, she's going to try something really funky with it. With Subdisarchi, it's going to be that standard mode like you just said. So it's not like the visual will surprise you. But at least with Masaba, I know the fact that there's something surprising that will pop out of it. I think that's the difference here if I compare both.
Yes, but what are we talking about today? Hopefully not the Starbucks Sabya collab.
We're talking about your lovely experience. I haven't used the app yet, or using Tata Neu, and what's happening with their super app, and do we need super apps and all that stuff. I'm popping into my favorite topic of the week is basically look into everything Twitter and Elon Musk. I've been obsessive about this story. I've gone into like deep threads and lots of conversations trying to understand what are the random things happening at the edges on this one. And you're getting into Asian Paints, and there's a bunch of stuff happening there with Asian Paints in recent times and even now. And to be closing, and then we have a few more. What else do we have?
Daily Hunt. We're going to be talking about Daily Hunt and the progress that they've made. They seem to be one of the last players standing. And you're ending our session today with
YouTube's podcast deck leaked online. There's some interesting things in that. We're going to talk about that and also discuss Gaurav Munjal and his interview.
Yep.
So all of that coming up and some random jokes in between. But before that, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with Think Fast.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcasts website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back to Think Fast. I am trying a new voice today. Maybe I will just talk like this for the entire episode. What are we talking about first,
Hopefully
Suchita?
you will stop talking like that for the entire episode. Varun. have Nexim. I told you about in the last episode. Okay, Behin. Okay, guys. So focus. Tata is back in the news. And, for those of you who've been living under a rock or definitely aren't on Twitter, they launched a super app called Neu. It was officially apparently unveiled in November of 2021, which is essentially they only gave access to the 8 lakh employees that the Tata Group currently has. And essentially, if you open Neu, they've basically got all of Tata's verticals under an umbrella, right? So you've got Big Basket, Chroma, 1MG, AirAsia, Taj Hotels, Tata Click, plus. And this really is the kind of, hero project, so to speak, of N. Chandrasekharan, who's obviously at the helm of, all things Tata right now. So Tata Digital and the focus over there seems to be massive, for him as well as the company at large. I had a chance to check out the app. I was kind of underwhelmed. But before we get into, talking about Tata Neu specifically, Varun, what is your TLDR on all things super apps? And are they really all that super?
I don't know if consumers really want a super app, because the problem is that once you have a super app, you have layers, right? You're not going and getting straight to what you want. You are going through one layer, then figuring out what you want, go deeper is what I feel like. I mean, pure consumer lens here. Just look at how everyone's kind of been building and succeeding of late. Does it make sense to just have multiple apps which people can tap into, or does it make sense to have a super app? I don't know if a super app makes sense. I know that it really worked. I think the only place it's worked is China, right? I don't think there's any other market where a super app has really blown up apart from China. Yeah. And China operates so differently from the rest of the world. So I'm a little unsure about this. I feel they will still need to have all of these, and I'm guessing they still exist as individual apps as well. So I don't know how much this will affect. I mean, do I need to, as a consumer, download it if I already have the apps I want? Maybe not.
Yeah, and I think so many people have tried to make this play, like there's Paytm which tried going the super app route, didn't necessarily really end up working for them. There's, obviously companies like Amazon and Flipkart, which in my opinion are more super apps than any of these other guys, because if you see how, and really what does a super app do, right? The fundamental underlying thesis of a super app is that a super app should be able to do more functions for a user than what's the opposite of super, than a Fattu app, right? And basically, and essentially what it means is there's too many use cases baked into, one simple product. I think the companies that have done this the best, whether it's, Amazon, in my opinion, classifies more as a super app than anything else. They've always started with one use case, right? So Amazon's OG use case was electronics, shopping, especially in the Indian context. And then they added more use cases to it. And of course, today you can even buy groceries off of Amazon. How much percentage percentage, share is groceries to overall Amazon business, it's minor. But the point is you're basically creating more use cases for the same customer that you've acquired that one time. So you don't have to acquire that same customer multiple different times for multiple different use cases that you may be creating and pushing out, right? The same, similar to the conversation that we had about like Zomato and Blinkit the last time around. Yeah. So I think fundamental to any quote unquote super app. So, there's this whole conversation around, will WhatsApp be the super app, for India, which also has not happened. And even WhatsApp's attempts with payments have, been lackluster, right? It hasn't overtaken other payment platforms the way one thought it would. Like I remember when WhatsApp was launting payments, everyone was just like, oh my God, Paytm is going to...
Everything has to get killed and all that stuff, yeah.
Exactly. So I think if you look at least the Indian context, one, we are too many people for a single app to solve all use cases. Tata's USP obviously seems to be that their positioning net has always been premium, right? Especially for the products that are on their, quote unquote super app. So everything from, a Tata Click, whose positioning on an e-com POV is premium, or if you look at Starbucks, Vistara, AirAsia, they're generally premium, Taj Hotels is a premium product. So I think it seems like they've kind of, got this like premium positioning and they have a bit of a head start there. One could argue that, they're kind of like putting themselves in the same bucket as Cred. But I don't know. I'm very like conflicted about this one.
So what you just said, right? What's their gateway drug? So every app needs a gateway drug. Why do you go to credit card? Then you get all the other stuff there. I know people who spend more time buying stuff on the credit app than they do paying the credit card bills, but they go there. Amazon is really going there to buy stuff. You might just use their payment gateway. You might watch something on Amazon Mini TV, but you're going in for the purchase. What is their gateway drug here? Because you're putting everything there, right? What are you going there for primarily? And then the other things are additional. But I think with that also, you can't be even in that. I think they're trying to be even is what I'm getting. Is like they're trying to say, come here and you get all the options. This is our mall in that sense. But I think they need that one primary storefront and then all the others are like additional.
Yeah, one is that, and the second is like, even if you look at the interface or the experience, their whole sort of focus seems to be this thing called, the new coins, which is basically like a currency, that they have on their app. I mean, we have it on the LBB app, Cred has it on their app. Like, it's a very like normal thing to have. You open Nykaa, you open Purple, all of these companies actually have some version of like an app currency. So the single biggest USP, at least right now, seems to be that you're going to get deals and discounts on, these like very premium products. But what it really unravels itself into, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think at some level they're just taking a gamble on Tata being a signaler of like being a signal of trust, and and because Tata is equal to trust, therefore use the app. I don't know. I'm a little confused about this one.
Yeah, I'm confused as well. I think time will tell, but as I think it will be either a costly experiment or it will just be one of those things that we'll all be like, okay, we didn't get it, but now that we see that it's worked, we get it. I guess that's what it will be. Speaking of we don't get it, I've been digging into all things Elon and Twitter over the last week. It's been a crazy week for Twitter.
Dude.
Let me start off with saying on the 1st of April, as always, the official Twitter handle tweeted saying, okay, we're making an edit button. And everybody's like, haha, Twitter, like, old joke, fine, you caught us again, and went away. And then little after that, you had this whole thing come out about how, around that time rather, when Elon Musk bought almost like close to 10%, not just a little below 10% equity in Twitter, after a Twitter poll, where he, about 2 odd million, if not more people kind of voted, where he asked them, do you think Twitter promotes free speech? And most of them said no. And then he bought that stake. He's been invited to the board. He's almost said that he wants to be part of making a bunch of changes to keep this platform in the way it is. Poor Parag Agrawal, who has just taken over from Jack Dorsey, and also Parag Agrawal, who used to actually head a product. So if you've seen how the Twitter product has been evolving with the communities part coming in, all that, it's moving in the right direction. But knowing Elon, he's obviously going to have a point of view. And he put another poll saying, should Twitter get an edit button? And Parag Agrawal quote tweets that, and he's like, guys, respond to this poll very carefully. It's kind of sad as well. And now they announced they're testing a edit button. They just announced that. So what do you think about this whole thing? It's madness.
Dude, I just think it's hilarious. I mean, to be fair, I want to give credit where credit's due. I think Elon Musk is like the poster child of how the internet works, right? He's like the ultimate meme machine. Anything that he does is just the most like viral, shareable content. And actually what's fascinating is how has he gotten to this? Because if you've read the book about him, he is not a fun guy, right? Like he's this like apparently very like dorky, focused, works 24/7. Like at least that's the archetype that's been created for him, either through things that you read about him. So that he has this like, crazy, very like hatke alter ego where, he's literally like talking smack about US senators in one breath.
Okay, you said he called Parag Agarwal Stalin a few weeks ago and now he's on the board.
Oh my God. Yeah, must be a delight to work with. But to be fair, he's also like Twitter's biggest use case. You know what I mean? You're talking about gateway drugs for apps, right?
Yeah,
he's like the gateway drug for Twitter. He's like
also,
what Kardashians
he's off all other
Instagram.
Platforms, right? He's off all other platforms.
Yeah.
He's been off all Facebook platforms. He only uses Twitter. He uses Twitter like his marketing machine. He's, I think, the fourth or fifth most followed person on it. He creates, like, he has made stock go up and down also. Like, sometimes he's used it shadily as well to make his stock go up, saying, I'm going to take it private, if you remember about Tesla a while back, where he tweeted saying he's
he
got enough funding to take Tesla private. Stock price went up. And then he said, no, actually, I'm not doing it.
The SEC came after him. He got into a lot of shit. He had to get
He had to leave as
Twitter.
chairman of the board because of that.
Yeah. He's a league of his own.
Yeah. So there's an interesting theory I read online, which I think is could be a good thing for Twitter. It says that Elon Musk likes to be working on something that's on fire. Like, Tesla get it to a certain point. So now Tesla's kind of stable. It's in that process where you now need like a CEO kind of running it and all that stuff. SpaceX, they haven't gone to Mars, but they still kind of come to the point where it's again like it's in a stable state. The boring company is doing what it's doing. Twitter's almost like a case for him to say, okay, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy being on this platform so much. Why can't I just do this? So there's even a case that the reason why they put him on the board is so that he doesn't kind of do a takeover and just make himself CEO, which he can.
Oh, man.
So I think it will be a good thing for Twitter, but I think it's also going to be a little, for a new CEO and for an entire team who working on something to just kind of have like an Elon Musk kind of come in the way he has.
Yeah.
I think internally might be a little tricky for people. I don't know.
But doesn't he sound like the ultimate like South Delhi boy, Elon Musk? He really does. He's just like, mujhe chahiye, main le raha hu. Like, it's very, you know what I mean? He's just like, oh, I like it. I'm buying it. So strange.
A friend of mine said that this is the biggest example of Q money ever. Like, this guy literally does a Twitter poll and then spends billions to buy biggest individual stake of Twitter. And then because he's bought it, whatever billions he spent has gone up by 250 million. So he made 250 million on day one on what he did. So
by just tweeting.
Case study in so many things.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for Parag Agarwal. I just got the job. He was head of product. He's moving it towards a direction.
Man. Yeah.
This is not a headache he wanted. Hopefully, it doesn't become a headache. That's the good. I think the positive way to look at it, maybe it's not a headache. Maybe it's actually going to take it towards more innovation and kind of finally figure a way that, because it's still crazy that Twitter as a platform, so popular, is still so far behind in value to anything Facebook's done or even LinkedIn. Any of these have done, right? Maybe this will be the shift.
I want to push back over there because I think Elon Musk being like the, Twitter meme machine / maverick that he is, or, him even having a significant stake in Twitter doesn't necessarily equal, his participation in like product innovation and stuff like that. So, and also, I hate saying this, but like, alpha users of a platform are usually like the worst decision makers on what will make the platform scale, because he knows how one part of the platform works, right? But what Twitter needs to scale is actually getting out of this whole, text format. It's like this stuck in like, 1997. And there are experiments around, their Clubhouse competitor or, communities and everything else that they're doing. What's that thing called where you can pay... No. You can pay the subscription for like super tweeters. You know what I'm referring to.
I forgot what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, like, that's really where the magic will come from. So I don't know. And I
I'm
also
saying
think Twitter.
primarily from Elon Musk is a master of creating buzz, right? And I feel that that's where it could actually be. His biggest role could be is that he
But
could actually be the person who creates
but
enough
bro,
buzz around Twitter.
everyone who is buzzed by Elon Musk is probably already using Twitter. I don't see them, you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine Elon Musk ka, chamcha not being on Twitter already. So will he even help with new customer acquisition?
Jealousy just told us it's called super follows.
Super follows. But I want to switch gears into a category and a story that I have been very bullish on
You're
since our
switching to a
predictions
different color.
episode.
Switching to a different color.
ये फटे हुए jokes फिर दोबारा. Okay, guys, focus. So, story number 3 for today, ladies and gents, before Varun kills us with his Papa G's jokes and starts plugging in some product. Or are you selling a paint, Varun, by the way? Should I take a
Not
1
yet,
minute
I
break
need
for
to
you to
create some
plug in a
paints.
paint?
Yes.
But in any case, guys, so, as... I think we've spoken about this a couple of times over the past 3-4 months, but I am very bullish on home and kitchen being one of the big categories of the next 3 to 4 years. And my bullishness is being warranted by Asian Paints' very many money moves. So Asian Paints, obviously popularly known for their paints, has been making a lot of acquisitions. They recently bought a company called White Teak, and they've also made a couple of acquisitions in software products. They also acquired Weather Seal, and these could be a mix of majority stakes and 100% acquisitions. But really, Asian Paints is trying to position itself as a all things home company through the recent acquisitions that they've made. And if you had to take a cue from the content that they do, so obviously they have a wonderful channel on YouTube called Where the Heart Is. And now if you look at Beautiful Homes, and
Beautiful
they
Homes,
also have another YouTube channel called Asian Paints. And if you open the YouTube channel, you'll see that Asian Paints has started doing a lot of home makeovers, and they've basically captured these home makeovers in these videos, and they've been running a bunch of Instagram ads as well. I keep getting targeted by them saying, sign up for Asian Paints' home services, whatever. So they're really making this big juicy home services play, which seems to also have a layer of products, being built on top of it. A good move. Varun, what do you say?
It's such a disorganized space with multiple players who are doing just one thing, right? I think that's the interesting part here for Asian Paints to kind of take over multiple aspects. Because if you look at any of things in home, especially this paints plus everything else category, everyone's got specific areas of focus. They can kind of become that brand which has all ends of it, and that slowly have become that. If you look at it, like just the evolution over the last many years, obviously, I'm guessing even the last 2 years would have had some effect on their business for sure, but in general, Asian Paints become the de facto. Okay, this is where you kind of go for, like, you go there for a wallpaper, you go there for pretty much anything you need for your house. And I feel over time that's what their play is, and it's a smart move. They're also a very respected name. They're a reliable name to kind of 100%. Go for. People kind of go, say, okay, I know I'm going to get the quality that I require. So ticks all the right boxes for a consumer.
Yeah. So just to give you some data points, ladies and gents, the Indian interior design market, driven by the fast growing real estate market, was worth 23 billion in 2020. And the expectation was that they'd add another 15 billion more over the next 7 years. So it's definitely a growing market. And, to the point, Varun, that you just made, it's a highly unorganized market because interior designers are kind of like your home bakers, right? They're known locally, but aggregation of them becomes very tough. I don't know if you remember, but Urban Clap, back when it was called Urban Clap and back in the day, one of the services that they offered was also interior designer. So you could book interior designers through there, and obviously they killed that because they saw the category that took off for them. But if you look at the space even of aggregation of, home services and interior design, there are a couple of large players. There's Homelane, which is Sequoia funded. And there's Livspace, which recently raised money from KKR. There's another brand called Design Cafe, which again is Bangalore based and raised money from, I'm forgetting the investor, but they raised a decent amount of money recently. If you look at all of these, everyone has their significant set of challenges, right? Like Homelane, for example, I think they've been at their business for a while now, like close to about 9-10, odd years. And again, they've sort of, built it up brick by brick. Livspace, so, obviously known for their stellar set of investors who've invested in the business. They are also unfortunately known for not the world's best customer satisfaction store. So like if you open their customer satisfaction score, so if you open their Instagram, you'll see a lot of complaints about, things didn't get done in time. So services is like wholly different from, the business of paints. And I wonder if the DNA will really extend from one, to the other.
I think also what's interesting when you look at the whole Asian Paints versus all of them is that with Asian Paints, they have that backbone. Like, especially services require you to have a system of saying, can you actually take care of, because home furnishing, the problem is that if you're doing something in your home, you are the most, lack of a more technical term, most anal about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel that because of that, if that part is really sorted, like, because I've used Asian Paints for parts of our house and feel that people who came in super organized, came in, did their job, went, no stress at all. Whereas everywhere else, little disorganized, you have like kind of like it's stuck together with duct tape in that sense with a lot of the other startups. So they have that. They have almost like obviously a long history of having built this backbone. So easy for them to plug those things in. And plus, it's not like they're seeming like an old brand, right? They're doing like their YouTube is, like you said, a great example of just kind of keeping it fresh. They're one of the only brands who've consistently done great branded content.
2000%.
And they also do collabs. We spoke about Subdisarchi earlier. They've done like, if I remember right, wallpapers with him.
Yeah.
They do a lot of these things as well. So if you look at, they kind of take all the boxes and they seem very focused on, okay, this is a category that we're going to take over. We're going to do smart projects. We're going to do stuff that has cultural relevance, but we'll also do stuff that is innately good service. I think no matter how much buzz you can do, if your service isn't good, people are eventually going to walk away, which I mean, like you mentioned about Live Space, that's the problem they faced.
Yeah. And I think the other, even if you look at home services at large, the truth is a lot of this needs to become modular over a period of time, right? Where that sort of pitch of, differentiated home or the positioning of, your home will be different from someone else's, that kind of needs to ebb away because the only way you really scale this up is through, modular-ish kind of formats. I think keeping this aside, one shout out that I definitely want to give to Asian Paints is I don't think I've seen a company play the long game this well, right? If you look at their investments in Start India, which is that street art movement that's, taken over the country and they've done such a phenomenal job, or, we've discussed their YouTube a bunch of times. I think they've done a really kick-ass job in playing the long game, and interesting space to watch out for, net.
Yeah. And, a while back I had Navin Murli from Pepperfry on Advertising is Dead, and he was talking about how also it's a great time. Like you've been saying this for a while now, and but he actually had an interesting term. He calls it reverse migration, where he says that what happened when because people had done their houses up in a basic way, many people, then they went back to their hometown, so they did a little bit there, or they went to other spaces. Now they're coming back here. Now I know that's different from what Asian Paints does, but I think it also means that as people come back into cities or go back to their homes, and homes become such a core part of it, the investment levels are just going up. You are making sure a house is good. And even if you're moving, you want to make sure the quality of your space is the same. So it's a great time to be a player like Asian Paints.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are we talking about next? Should we talk about for a break? I think we take a break before Jalasmi tells us. Yes, Jalasmi has told us to take a break. See? We have done it before you told us. Okay, so we'll take a break. We'll be right back with Think Fast.
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IVM Podcasts App, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.
Welcome back to Think Fast. What are we talking about now? We're talking about... Okay, so while I was away a few weeks ago on my Botox trip, you and Amit...
He acknowledged it, ladies and gents. He acknowledged it. That face is full Botox.
Is my face looking amazing? All that...
Yeah, and your lipo as well. You forgot about your lipo.
Yes. But if I get lipo, then what's going to be left? If I get lipo, then there'll be no there'll only be Varun Duggirala will be gone. But
another dad joke. But continue.
Yes. So you guys spoke about how YouTube's trying to get into the podcasting game and dug into that whole space. But the podcast deck from YouTube, a few slides of that leaked and went all across the interweb. And what's interesting when you look at that is it gives a few key things in terms of where YouTube might come in and kind of disrupt the whole space. Because still now, if you look at it, Spotify's kind of been the one kind of pushing the industry in a direction.
Forerunner.
Right? Apple's been around for a long time, but Apple's honestly been the slowest to get off their ass to get stuff in order. They're a solid platform, but now they're finally doing stuff with subscription and all that stuff. But Spotify's kind of been driving things in a certain direction. But the interesting part is what YouTube is saying is like the problem is that a lot of YouTubers have had podcasts on YouTube. But if they don't do video properly, they just put audio versions, which never gets traction. Because visuals are what get you traction on YouTube. On the other end, even if they are putting visuals over there, they never see as much traction as, let's say, a regular YouTuber video and stuff like that, unless you've gone to the production values of, let's say, a Joe Rogan or any of the others. But what YouTube's trying to do is like they want to improve the podcast ingestion. So basically, you have to pull your podcast from your RSS feed and put it onto YouTube, which was never done. You had to kind of take an audio clip, try to put some video on top of it, export it, put it on. Here you can literally pull it off that and put it onto YouTube directly, which solves distribution. You're not worried about that. Yeah. Plus, they got to plug in their ad platform, which is going to be the game changer. Because the biggest question all new YouTubers have is that how do I monetize and how do I get an ad in? And while that still is tricky to get, like either you're part of a platform like we are or other a network like we are, but even then it's not something everybody has access to. But on YouTube, anybody can make a YouTube podcast and immediately plug into their system. And Spotify, even though they have their own platform, which they acquired a while back, hasn't moved as quickly as expected. So YouTube just might become the number one podcast platform. What do you think?
I think it sounds highly unlikely, number one. And I think the reason for that is if you look at what Spotify's strategy has been, and no one's saying that it's worked out extremely well, but it always starts with original content, right? And you see this with anyone who's now trying to get into media and disrupt new spaces, whether it's your OTT platforms or, you know, what was that other short form video app which died a very tragic death after raising $1 billion? Jeff, you'll know, they used to make 10-minute videos. It was launched during the pandemic. Sadly.
You're talking about Quibi.
Yes, Quibi. Yeah. So sorry. So getting back to that. Yeah. So basically, like if you see, you know, even if you see what Jeff Katzenberg and Meg Whitman tried to do with Quibi, though it didn't end up going anywhere, their approach, logically speaking, was correct, right? Which is create a lot of original content, use that original content to pull creators, investors, eyeballs, blah, blah, bullshit to your product. So now I think obviously the thing that YouTube has, which no one else does, is distribution. But I think the real question to answer over here is distribution and all is cool, but let's be honest, most of media applies on Pareto, which means, you know, your top 10-20% of creators will drive like 80% of the results that you really need them to. The long tail kind of gets lost, and very few platforms have been able to create even a decent like middle class of creators on their platform, right? We'd spoken to Shefali about this in an older episode as well.
Apart from YouTube though.
Apart from YouTube. But remember, YouTube monetization, apart from first world countries like the US and I'm assuming some parts of Europe, most of it is still driven by branded content. It's not really driven by programmatic ads.
So the ads still make money, but I feel it will be two things, right? I think what you're saying about how much money will they make is different, but right now people don't make any money. So it'll suddenly be, okay, I can actually make money out of this, and it'll help discovery. The second biggest problem all podcasters have is how do I get my podcast discovered? I was talking to someone the other day who said that YouTube is basically the world's second largest search engine owned by the first largest search engine.
Yeah.
And if you want to do discovery, like for instance, any podcast, if it's just on YouTube, why do you do that? Because you know you're going to get more search. Like people will find it because they're looking for something. So if you actually go into the data, you know, start tagging it right, you look at re-indexing it, doing all of that stuff. Over time, every podcast that has a strong YouTube presence will one way or the other find an audience, will be able to get search in, will be able to be discovered. Because right now, if you look at search on podcasting platforms, it's a pain. Like you can't find stuff unless you type the exact word. Spotify has become a little better, but in general, that's the big problem. So YouTube can really solve that. And they're also getting into the metrics, which I don't fully get. They basically say, I think so basically there were 3 slides that leaked. The first slide obviously spoke about ingestion and search. The second slide spoke about audio ads. Third one talks about new metrics. They want to integrate YouTube data into industry podcast measurement platforms. which is basically Nielsen Chartable pod track. I don't know if this deck is from a little earlier because Chartable just got acquired by Spotify. So I don't know if how they're going to plug into that. Will that still happen? But they kind of saying, okay, we have some things that we're really good at. And YouTube has obviously been that. And you speak to most young people, a lot of people, and I've been surprised at the volume, still listen to podcasts on YouTube. They prefer that for two reasons. You can build a community through the comments. You can interact with other YouTubers and do that. And secondly, they get better search and it's somewhat natively easier for them to do. And so that's why I'm bullish about this. I think it'll really kind of change the game, might make Spotify move faster with some of their plans as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think where I'm aligned with you is for ecosystem growth, everyone needs to take podcasts seriously. Like podcasting won't grow if it's only existing as a niche on some, random platform on which is searchable only on Google, right? So I think generally what this will do for podcasting is massive. But my point is like for them to actually even deliver on an impact for podcasters or podcasts at large, they need to first create top of funnel for, formats like podcasts, which is essentially on YouTube, a conversation in between two people. They need to create more of such formats, which can be done either through original content, by exclusive partnerships and, deals in this, that and the other. But I think that's what's going to be needed for it to actually have an impact, because otherwise what ends up happening is it ends up becoming like a feature and not, or like a random sort of like tab on Google search. And you know what I mean? And the original problem which you correctly defined of discoverability, that doesn't get solved for because it's just somewhere in the general, ether of YouTube. So if they genuinely want to drive discoverability, they need to make the use case of watching podcasts on YouTube attractive enough for, YouTube users, which will require some amount of investment in original content if they want to do it right. That's my take.
Yeah. No, I think it's all in all, I think a good kind of movement. It'll get all the other platforms jumping up and down to kind of do more. And I think the
hopefully
podcaster
you and I
will
make some money.
Options.
1 rupee,
yes,
2 rupees.
More money.
Yes. Anything at this point will do. Speaking of someone
money,
who's making... Yes. Copying my intro line. Look at you, Varun. Look at you. Great mind. Great minds.
Go for it.
One story that I really wanted to talk about is this like Daily Hunt story. Obviously, these guys have, been around for a while. They're one of the OG, vernacular content apps. I remember when, they had sort of like raised their first couple of big rounds in 2014, 2015. It was them and there was, InShots. They, interestingly enough, haven't just stood the test of time. They apparently have like been thriving, as well, based on at least the numbers that I read. So just a couple of quick numbers for you, dear listeners. The holding company, which is Verse, they apparently have clocked an absolute revenue of $128 million for FY 2022. They recently raised a massive round of $805 million, which has caused a significant jump in their valuation to about 5 billion. They've also got a couple of other products. So for example, Daily Hunt launched Josh, which was their like TikTok competitor, and that of course has generated a significant amount of eyeballs for them. But I think the story really over here is, who would have thunk back in the day when Daily Hunt started, when they were making this very contrarian bet of vernacular language content, who would have even thought they'd be around today and look at where they are?
I think it also shows that they used a core way of working and smartly grew. I don't think at any point you heard Daily Hunt doing anything which seemed too like hyper growth focused and just kind of letting go of basic business metrics. I'm at least never heard of any of those stories. So maybe that I'm guessing that didn't happen. But more than anything else, it feels very planned. Nothing feels like an erratic move. Nothing feels like even Josh becoming a part of it. It kind of made sense because they were anyway in that space. Josh certainly didn't try to be an Instagram. They knew that their audience they had with Daily Hunt was a specific category of consumer. Let's focus on them, build this for them, which is why Josh kind of stuck to that. Instead of trying to compete in different categories, they went deep with the consumer they had. And I feel that's really where their secret sauce has been, is that they really understood the consumer, double tapped on that, kept going down, and that's where they got the most amount of value from the consumer.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about them is, obviously if you look at the general space of media is generally focused on your top, 70 million users of India, right? Definitely the top 100 million users of India. They've kind of like gone 70 mil plus, right? So they've taken this, they've genuinely actually really gone after the, what genuinely is Indian middle class, and given them more than enough, avenues of content consumption, through their app. Obviously, their bets on vernacular were very interesting back in the day, because I think one big criticism that a lot of vernacular content apps got was, will you even be able to generate enough average revenue per user, right? And I don't know what Daily Hunt's customer metrics are and consumer metrics are at right now, but them even getting to that 800 odd crores of annual revenue is not a easy task at all. Which basically means you've got a couple of things right. One, they've definitely got programmatic right, because the only way to deliver on those kind of revenues is have your programmatic advertising right down to the T. I think the second thing that they've obviously been able to do, and this would be my assumption, is have a strong set of like repeat advertisers. I wonder who their advertisers are though, but I think the pieces that really have sort of come together for them is making average revenue per user work for what usually is considered to be as a time rich but money poor user base, and that they've made this happen through advertising revenue. My assumption again is pretty remarkable, man. Those are fantastic numbers for an advertising-based platform.
I think what's also interesting is that they primarily generate all their revenue only through Daily Hunt. Everything else doesn't make money. Josh doesn't make money for them yet. I mean, they're not contributing. I think the details say only will contribute by FY23 in that sense. But I feel what's also interesting is some of the things that they've done some smart pieces, like they've partnered with all your mobile manufacturers. So basically, Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, all had this as a default news app. I think that would have really helped them. So some of these as well, you do it smartly, you partner with the right people, you keep that focus on the consumer. And I feel the Bharat consumer at some point became, if you as an advertiser wanted to reach out, the Daily Hunt was like an almost a de facto platform you had to go to, which is where I'm guessing the numbers came from. And obviously I'm sure there's something more than that, but that seems to be the reason that they were experts in this category, and that's a huge category.
Yeah, and just look at the content creator user base, man. They apparently have over 100,000 content partners and creators who publish 250,000 news and content pieces every day across 14 languages. Again, so even their UGC piece seems to really, really, really be working. But I think this is a story that we should keep looking out for, because, obviously having an idea is one thing, but being able to build at this scale is no laughing matter.
I think there's also differentiates this from InShots, in the sense that InShots tried to be more general audience. They want to also
only
go for the metro
also.
Audience. That could not go into this side, but maybe this form of news delivery is actually what's perfect for the wider spread Bharat audience than what is normally fed to them by, let's say, newspaper or traditional media in that sense. So could be also be a learning for any news or like almost like content delivery platform to really learn from them, saying, look at this as a consumption play as well. Like, this is what the consumption habit of this consumer is, and you can actually use that in whatever you're building out.
Yeah. Last story for the day though today is
Gaurav Munjal. So Gaurav Munjal did this very interesting interview on Morning Context, and what I liked about it was the fact that he was very honest about why they exited the K-12 business. So famously, An Academy got into the K-12 business, said they're going to disrupt it, do it very differently from how it's being done. And obviously the biggest player in that is Byju's, and how they really own that space. And then to even have done a few acquisitions and then suddenly shut the whole thing down. It was a surprisingly honest interview. Like, when I say honest, it's like there was nothing hidden. Like, he said what it was. He said, okay, we got into this because of FOMO. He didn't try to come up with some form of spiel. He literally said what their motivations were, where they failed, where they were wrong, where the strat was off. I genuinely thought it was very smart in the way he kind of projected not just himself, but how they work. What did you think about it?
So I think one thing that's been consistent about the way Gaurav Munjal has at least projected himself is whether you like him or hate him, you can't disagree with the fact that, what you see is what you get, right? And he had done this pretty nice, like 45-minute long podcast episode with Shailinder Singh of Sequoia. And on that podcast, the Sequoia podcast called Moonshot, he had, spoken, he in fact had alluded to that guy who he had hired who summarizes books for him in pages and, gives it to him, and he'd spoken about productivity and this, that and the other. I think he generally, at least to me, comes across as a very like intense founder who, works 24/7, probably demands the sky, sun, moon and earth from his direct reportees, and definitely at a significant level, is very ambitious, right? And those are the things that, you need a mixture of those things to, one, crack the market that he's been able to crack, and also scale at the pace at which he's been able to scale. I think the thing with him is, it's one of those, like, with great popularity comes great responsibilities, because he uses platforms like Twitter to, talk about business results and business goals and this, that and the other. You need to also then be able to project intellectual honesty when things aren't going the way you need them to. So I think it was very on brand. I don't know the guy from Adam, but like it was very on brand, because he just seems like the kind of guy where you see what you get.
Yeah, and also I think that if you look at this entire segment, obviously EdTech has been in this whole, like, Byju's is the biggest giant there, and Unacademy has obviously scaled a lot in the last few years. I mean, considering the fact that this started off as a YouTube channel, the origins of Unacademy were, they were a YouTube channel where he wanted to give free content for people to get this, and from a YouTube channel to this is like obviously a fabulous story. But what I think it also kind of shows is that you understand how companies work when interviews like this happen. Like, he spoke about the fact that they don't expect everything they do to succeed. But I think the offshoot of that, which we've learned later on, is the Unacademy just let go of 1,000 people. Right.
Yep.
So while companies are experimenting and doing stuff, obviously there are repercussions, like, people losing their jobs and stuff like that. But we're in this whole let's move fast, break stuff, and see what sticks way of building things in many cases. Unlike some other, unlike most, like we spoke about Asian Paints earlier, right? Some of them who actually taken kind of moved in a slightly more focused manner. But I think especially when growth is your primary focus and you want to kind of go in and take over markets, this seems to be the way to do it. And what seems to be the biggest focus for all of them, and if you read the article, you'll realize that it comes down to the teachers. It's still at the end of the day, whatever tech they're adding in, whatever that, it comes down to who is the person teaching, how much people kind of getting onto that, and then how do you kind of build subscription on top of that. So end of the day, no matter how much ed tech has the tech in it, it's still the educator.
Yeah, and I mean, so two quick buckets that I want to, sort of break what you just said into, right? One part of it obviously is, them firing people and this growth at all costs kind of attitude and approach. Honestly, and I'm not saying this in defense of anyone, because everyone makes their own choices, but if you are raising copious amounts of money from the biggest VCs on this planet, you can't say, you can't not sign up for that, right? Yeah. Either you pace out the pace at which you take investments in and pace out the pace at which you take funding, or you play the game by the rules that have been very strictly laid out for folks who are raising money from, large VCs and not just raising money, but like giant, 100, 200. That guy must have raised like close to $1 billion, I suppose. But basically, I think this grow fast thingamajig is a consequence of the general sort of like VC culture. Yeah. And I think one thing that I would, I want to call out to over here also is there are a lot of edtech companies, quote unquote edtech companies, who have built significant scale, have built, 100, 200 crore or businesses without raising a single rupee of venture capital. So I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. It's just as an entrepreneur, you have to choose the way that you have to decide what way you choose. And he actually talks about this in the interview that he did on that Sequoia podcast, where he said, I want to build something big. That's my ambition. And I want to build something big fast. And hence this route for me makes sense. Obviously, one of the consequences of that route is when something doesn't work, you need to cut your losses sooner rather than later. I think the second part of what you said is absolutely telling. And even if you look at Baiju's business model and where they make money from, there's that running joke, right? That they make money by like selling tablets and like, you know, selling whatever, like books and this, that and the other. So it actually doesn't come from even the education piece. It comes more from like the things that you need, you know, to get access to that, to that education. I think EdTech is like extremely, I don't know, it's a very like convoluted, complicated space, but it's not just edtech, man. If you look at anything in India, it comes down to one word, which is operations. Everything at its core is an operations business. Technology is largely an enabler and honestly, in a lot of cases, a way to raise a significant amount of money at like ridiculous multiples. But most things in India are ops businesses. They are large, they are rarely ever, pure play tech businesses.
Yeah, and if you look at the people who were let go, and that's, I'm referring to an Economic Times article on it, of the 1,000 people, but 300 were educators, right? The rest of them were all in sales and business development.
Yeah.
So it also kind of shows, right, is that, okay, maybe in hypergrowth, what you also do is you end up beefing up areas of just growing. So just that percentage split also kind of shows that that's what ends up happening, especially when you have to kind of pull back. You pull back on some of your largest functions. They have 6,000 people and 1,000 people have been let go of. So, but end of the day, as taking the human aspect of it aside, the fact that people have lost jobs, I agree with you. Like if you are growing at that pace, if that's what you've signed up for, someone who has joined that company, you should know that this is something that can happen. And but you also the other side is that if it really grows quickly, you can scale really quickly as an individual as well. So there are multiple sides to this, but I think all in all, it was a refreshing interview from a founder for me at least, after a while, considering all the shit that's been going on with a lot of founders calling others behen or whatever else or worse things. This seems to at least be someone who actually is speaking what the truth is, but not being a douche about it.
Yeah, I concur. I agree.
Speaking of douches, we would be douches if we didn't give you guys a break. So we'll do that. We'll head back to Think Fast.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM Podcasts. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.
Welcome back to Think Fast. And while in the background, Suchita's trying to figure out what is she going to recommend. What are you recommending? I have a recommendation. I weirdly enough have a newsletter recommendation.
You have a newsletter recommendation. What am I recommending
called
today?
1,000 Faces Club. They basically it's a creator economy community. They send emails out. They have interesting community. They have like basically a lot of stuff between masterclasses and analysis to looking at creator journeys. Very interesting. Like I just subscribed. Got a few things in here from them. Seem to be interesting. Like I haven't seen a creator economy focused newsletter / publication kind of come up in India yet, and they seem to be one of the first ones. So interested, 1,000 Faces Club. You should check it out.
Nice. Because you're recommending a newsletter, मैं भी करती हूँ एक और newsletter. There's a very good newsletter. This isn't new, but which I love. It's called Sociology of Business. And the writer / runner of the newsletter is this lady called Anna Angelic. And she essentially basically covers, literally what her newsletter is called, which is the Sociology of Business. She does an excellent job of breaking down. She humanizes how businesses approach, new collection launches. She talks a lot about, spaces like Zara. How are collections of Zara designed? What is Hero Hub hygiene for all of these different businesses? She's also recently spoken a lot about the application of NFTs in design and this, that, and the other. But I mean, I'm butchering it for you, dear listeners. But check out Sociology of Business, run by Anna Angelic. Really kick-ass original content, which focuses a lot on the humans behind the products.
Speaking of newsletters, my newsletter is now 3 times a week, which is
Oh my
Unschooled.
God.
It is Unschooled. It comes out 3 times
I
a
was
week.
thinking,
Short,
guys, I was thinking,
bite-sized.
1 ghanta ho gaya hai. Varun hasn't plugged himself in. He hasn't
Short,
plugged his dog.
a
He
short
hasn't.
newsletter once 3 times a week, where you get one thought starter, one insight, one recommendation. It's short, and you can get a lot of learning from this. So please subscribe to Unschooled. It's
Yes.
varundugi.substack.com, and lots of interesting things sent to you every week. Okay, my
Okay,
self-plug
guys.
is over.
Yes. Varun has plugged himself. He hasn't called himself beautiful today for a change. Varun,
Yeah.
wo bhi bol do. Usually it's always like, oh my God, guys, look at my hair.
I'm
look
thinking
at
of
my
becoming
skin. I'm like, perfect.
a 40 plus what do you call what is it called, personal grooming creator. That's going to be my thing after August or even earlier. I'm going to start putting up
personal
beard oil
grooming
tutorials
creator.
and stuff like that.
Guys, this podcast is going to end in August, so up until then, enjoy the episodes, because after Varun goes
I'll
into
start
all of
using
these
foundation
random
and
routes.
stuff like that.
Oh my God,
But then,
cannot wait for
before
this contemplation.
one small digression, do you know that Alex Rodriguez famously was engaged to Jennifer Lopez,
Jennifer
football player,
Lopez.
launched his male makeup brand, which is basically foundation, but it's on like a stick which looks like a lip balm. So seems
Amazing. And that's why JLo dumped him. So you know what's going to happen next? Pooja is going to get
I will
her
get
Ben
Pooja
Affleck.
to sign off on this before I do it.
Yes.
Okay, digressions
that's it, guys.
aside, that's it for this episode. See you guys next week.
See ya. Bye.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to Naveen Murali. He is the head and VP of marketing at Pepperfry, and together they trace the evolution of the furniture market in India. On Marathi Kirkitun, the Deshmukhs welcome Sania Mane, host of our new Marathi podcast, Akhand Bharat. She shares how she conceptualized the podcast and the story behind presenting history in this way. On Tere Mere Rasta, Keshav takes us to a land of unique traditions, Mathi. Find out how they use auspicious occasions to plant trees. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh analyze India's current need of the hour, self-reliance or self-interest. And on Smarter with Sid, Siddharth shares 2 important lessons we can learn from the infamous Oscars incident involving Will Smith, Chris Rock, and, well, a joke and a punch. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, including the one you're listening to us on now. And also, please do check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're all available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey to help us understand you, the listener, better, and how you like our shows, how you respond to the advertising, and so on. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.